hammer and the hammer spring. And this has the 2 little holes in it. You can use the tip of your thumb, just push on it and just give it a twist until you can get your fingers on it. And even if it's in there a turn or so, you can still get a fingertip on it. Basically, you want to push on it because it's spring, there's a spring in there, so the spring's pushing on the thread. So if you push back on that spring a little bit, then you take the pressure off the threads. So now those are out. So now to remove the hammer, you can see the hammer down in there, the tip of it. So I'm just going to use an Allen wrench to push that. Not only go, okay, it did come all the way out. Sometimes what you'll have to do is down in here, this pin here holds in. I'm not sure what you'd call it, but you can push the front of it with an Allen wrench, and sometimes that'll help you get the hammer out. Now to put the hammer back in, I think you have to do that. Push on it with one Allen wrench, take another one and push on the front, and it goes. And then if it stops again, you got to take the trigger mechanism, and that'll allow you to put the hammer in all the way. So if you want to remove just the hammer, that's how you remove it and reinstall it. Okay, next we're going to remove the side cover. And it's just 2 screws, a long one in the front and a short one on the back side of it. Now to remove the side cover, you gotta mess with the magazine selector while you lift up on it, because that kind of holds it in there a little bit. It traps it. Okay, so now we can see the inside. And what you want to do next is move your magazine selector back. You can pull it back farther than you normally could with the cover off. And you can just grab this piece here, spring with this spring on it and all. Just grab it and just pull it right off. Now on the back side of this is a washer that spaces it out a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and just pull that off too. Now we can put that back so this spring doesn't have tension on it. And there's a cap screw right here, and that holds in this whole magazine index assembly. It's really easy to take out. You just remove this one cap screw, and then you can take your finger and put it in through the slot there, the magazine slot, and just give a push on it and kind of wiggle, and the whole piece comes out. So now this is if you want to take this apart, there's nothing to it. This pin right here will come out. You can see it's loose, and then you can remove this piece here that locates the center locates in that center hole in your magazine, and you can remove this spring. Just pulls right off of there. So there's really nothing to that. once you remove the spring and this pin, it all just comes apart. Okay, so now we can see the inside of this. There's a little spring holding this piece here. I'm going to take that off, and I just use some little needle nose pliers, and I grab it and I remove it from the front. And then I like to move it down and underneath so it's kind of coming out the side of the cover. Then it's out of the way for when you're moving this around. Okay, now this piece here, this is what actually cocks your hammer. Down on the bottom right here, there's a hook that goes down into a slot that catches the front of your hammer. So basically when you cock this piece here, this front hook that you can't see is hanging down and catches the front of that hammer. The reason that these crickets are so rough, at least what I think, is these slots right here. And you can hear that when I move it. These are, I'm assuming they're wire EDM machined, which is basically just an electrified wire that runs through there and cuts it out. And I think it's left some pretty heavy lines in there. And so when you cock this thing, there's tension on the hammer, which means that this thing basically angles in here and really rides hard on these pins. And all that roughness transfers right into the cocking handle. And you feel it, and it feels awful. I haven't found a way to remove this. The only way to remove it, I think, is to take this pin out. Now this pin is hanging out. This one's flush. These are both, basically this part's put in, the pins are pressed in, which basically sets that part in there and you can't take it out. Everything's pressed together. The only way I can think to get this pin out is to weld something to it, a bolt or whatever, and then use a slide hammer to pop it out. And then just have to get a new, it's probably like a, I don't know what size metric pin it is, but then just get a new pin to press in there. But I want to get this out because then I can take a thin stone and I can stone these surfaces on the inside of this slot, both these slots. And then that will, I guarantee, will smooth up the cocking of the cricket. It's just a real pain in the ass to have to do that, to get it out. So I found a way around, the only way to get the cocking lever out, therefore allowing the bolt to come out, is I thought to remove this, but I found another way. What you can do is if you pull this all the way forward, this right here, and then you take your finger and you pull up on the back side as far as you possibly can, and then push back on the cocking handle, it slips behind it. See that? So now that that's behind there, we can remove the pin that holds it in. So I'm going to stick the little pliers in there. I'm going to grab that pin, pull straight down, and the pin comes out. Now there's another piece in there which is kind of like a little bushing. And that little bushing sits on top of the cocking handle lever in there. And it rides in a little channel up in the top here. You probably can't see it, but so your pin goes through here. It's kind of hard to do on camera, but your pin goes through there, then you got your little sleeve that goes on top of it, and then all that pushes up into the hole in the bolt, and that stays there. So this is in your bolt. This little rotating sleeve sits in the slot up there. So now we can remove the bolt probe, I guess. Okay, so now basically the only thing left to do is to remove the cocking handle in case you want to polish it. I'm thinking I'll probably smooth mine up here because it's kind of hard on the fingers. So there's a pin on the top. Now there's nowhere underneath to get at that pin. So I found if you take a magnet and you tap on it, what you can do is just tap and there it comes. So it'll come out, or you can maybe tap it on a hard surface with that edge hanging over the edge, that corner hanging over the edge, and it'll come out. So then you just give it a pull and the cocking handle comes out. Now on each side of you can see there's a washer. There's a washer still stuck there, but there's a washer on each side of the cocking handle. So to reassemble that, it's pretty easy. You just take this one washer. I'm not going to do it on camera because you need to be moving all around. This can be tough to do on camera, but you put that washer in, then you can put this piece in, and then you can slip the other washer in there on the top, and then you can take a toothpick and run down there and kind of straighten everything up. Make sure this pin is really clean before you put it back in. That way you're not like pushing it in there with a bunch of crap, and then you'll never be able to get it out again probably with a magnet. As long as it's clean, you should be able to get that back out. So now this is disassembled about as far as you're going to get it without getting that pin out. I tried heating this up from the back side, hoping it would expand enough to release this pin, and using pliers and everything else, and I couldn't get it. It must be pressed in there really hard. So that's the next thing I'd like to do is get at that so I can polish those slots. The only other thing to remove is your little spring